Greetings, aviators, I guess, and welcome to Bomber Crew. This is one I picked up after seeing it on somebody else's channel, and you might be thinking, oh, Jingles. Well, yes, Jingles has done a video, but actually it was a channel called Many a True Nerd, and it was just before this game came out, because it's only been out on Steam for a couple of days. Bomber Crew is, well, people have been mentioning FTL a lot. It's kind of, sort of in the same vein as FTL, but there are some definite fundamental differences with it. But basically, you've got a little chibi Lancaster, and you have to take it out on missions, and you have to manage the crew and manage everything that's going on in the plane. And the crew can die, the plane can crash, and unlike FTL, where that would be the end of that particular run, in Bomber Crew, you just keep going, only you have a fresh crew and a fresh plane. And unfortunately, that means any upgrades you might have put on the plane are also gone. But I'll get more into that once we actually load up the save I'm on at the moment. Before I do, though, I want to point out it has this feature. I've almost already filled up an entire, what would you call this, a plaque, I guess, with all of the crew that I've killed. There's about 8 bombers worth of crews there, including, you might notice, some themed names there. Yes, that's why this is the current crew. It displays the current crew. That's why Uhura is on this crew. She was the sole survivor. And some of these crashes are entirely my own fault. There was one where it turns out I did a thing that's risky, but the game didn't tell me it was risky, and so my plane unexpectedly ran into the ground when I had no idea that was a possibility. So that was one where I've actually given them a bit of feedback on Twitter and said, hey guys, it would be really nice if you would warn people that doing this thing at low altitude, it might crash your plane, because there was absolutely no indication that it might. One of them was just me, like, accidentally taking the pilot out of their seat and the plane crashing into the ground, because I had realised I thought I'd clicked on a different crew member, and I realised too late that actually, no, I'd taken the pilot out of the seat, and by the time I was trying to put someone back into the pilot seat, it was too late. So, yeah, anyway, I've killed a bunch of people, is what I'm saying. So I'm going to go with the second save, because I've been playing that a bit more cautiously through. The first save, I'm actually up to the midpoint in terms of the campaign missions, because like FTL, you know, you're progressing through a star system, and you can choose your own route through. Well, in this you get a sets of missions that come up, and you get critical missions that advance you through the campaign, basically. So this time round, I've been playing ultra cautiously and just really taking my time. Unlike FTL, where there is this hard time limit of the rebel fleet chasing behind you, in this you can dawdle along at the lower end of the campaign for as long as you want, and you can just grind away, which is what I have been doing. I haven't progressed very far, but I do have a relatively upgraded plane at this point. And so that makes things a bit safer, but there's still the chance that I will massively derp in some way, because this game is all about having to manage a lot of things happening at once. And at least one of my plane crashes was because there was just too many things happening at once, and I just kind of froze up. Which is, like, this is why I don't play fast-paced games generally, because, you know, if there's too much information coming in, and this is almost certainly, like, I could put this under the whole Asperger's banner of, you know, traits that I don't deal well with a lot of information coming in very quickly indeed, which is why, you know, games like World of Warships are my speed. Games like this, well, for the most part, it's fine, but yeah, I've had one or two moments where it's just felt like there is too much coming in, and one of those did lead to a fatal plane crash. Now, with FTL, also, it can be pretty busy, but crucially, FTL lets you pause the action, and this does not, so that might be off-putting to some people, but I've mostly been coping with it. I do have one or two other niggles with the game, though, but I think the developers, I mean, it's a very small developer. Was it Runner Duck Games or Rubber Duck? I can never remember. I always want to say Rubber Duck because, you know, AMX40. But, yeah, it's like 2 people did the game, and then somebody else did the music for the game. So we're talking a very small developer indeed. And actually, I think just based on the number of videos and the amount of attention this has got, you know, they must be feeling pretty good this weekend, because it seems to have caught the imagination. And as I say, I watched many a True Nerds video and just thought, that seems all right. Then looked at the price, thought that seems worth the punt, and so far, yeah, it's been okay. I don't know how repeatable the game is, though. There's not... I mean, one of the hallmarks of FTL is just how much randomization you get with the encounters, and that's not really the case in this game. But, you know, they might add more stuff over time. I don't know. There might be... You know, I could potentially see add-ons for this game, DLCs coming along with, I don't know, extra campaign missions, or a different campaign with, you know, you could have like a different campaign with the B-17 bomber, for instance, just as a thought. Anyway, so you do missions. In fact, we'll start off with you know, everything. Just explain what's going on. So you have a crew. When you start off, you actually start with the crew, but as they get killed, and they probably will get killed, you recruit new crew members. Your crew can be outfitted with their own gear, so it's not just you can make upgrades to the plane, but you can actually outfit your crew members and individualize them as well. And there's a couple of different ways in which that's important, because the 2 or 3 main factors are their armor value, their speed, and then their thermal resistance, I guess, and their oxygen capacity, because if you're going to be going at high level flight, you're going to need to have your crew being all nice and toasty and warm, and they're going to need oxygen, otherwise you're going to have problems. But for the most part, I've gone for mostly heavy armoring, apart from the crew members where I know they need to move around the plane more, and then I've concentrated a bit more on mobility. There's also survival stats as well. If your plane crashes, this is why Uhura is still alive, there is a little kind of a wheel thing that basically, you know, gives you a chance of the crew member surviving if they didn't get outright killed by the crash, which I think must just be a dice roll. So the crew all have skills. They can all have primary skills and secondary skills. Let's see, the pilot is, I've secondary skilled them as an engineer, for example. Some crew skills can't be put in as secondary skills, so you can only have one crew member with the bombardier skill. You can only have one crew member that's a pilot, but all of the others can be assigned to other skills. And there's also a medic skill as well that lets you heal other crew members, because there is a way of healing your crew members on board the aircraft, but you only get one of those, and it is not upgradable. So this is the plane, which is very imaginatively named the second one, because this is the second bomber of this particular campaign. And you've got all various cosmetic things, and I actually bought the like, they might do this as a separate DLC later, but having bought it now, they gave you basically a bunch of skins to go with it. So you can have a shiny gold plane, or you can have a pearlescent plane, or you can have a Percy the Pigeon plane if you want, but I think we'll just stick with what I've got. It's also, it also has a nice little feature where you might have noticed the little saltires on the engine nacelles. Yeah, it gives you a little kind of pixel art thing, so you can like draw your own. Oh, it'd help if I did a separate color, so I could have that as my completely wonderful nose art. Yeah, let's not have that though. That looks like, I don't even know what that looks like, but let's not. So yeah, it's a bit basic, but you know, you can do that. I actually came up with my own. Where are we? Let's set that back to that. I came up with my own roundels, because it's the Scottish Air Force, totally. So, you know, you've got the saltire in the middle, and then you've got that kind of orangey bit around the edge, because it's like a Scotch egg. So there you go. There is a logic there of a sort. You can even, you know, type stuff on the side of the plane if you want. I could change that to... Let's change it. Why not? Just for the purposes of this video. Hello, YouTube! There we go. So, yeah, there's various self-explanatory areas. The engines represent your lifting weight, essentially, because everything adds weight to the plane. There are other ways in which you can trim weight. You can go with lighter armor, for example, or lighter sections of fuselage, rather, or you can go with gun turrets that are lighter, but maybe do a bit less damage. But the principal way in which you increase your weight limit is by adding engines, and there's 3 different flavors. Lightweight is less armored. Armored is more armored but has less, you know, carry weight, and then there's just the standard ones. Gun turrets, similarly, you know, there's various different types. Interestingly, the rear turret actually comes with an ammo feed option, which means your gunners never need to reload, which is really, really handy. And you always lag a bit behind in terms of damage, but I think it's worth it, because otherwise, you know, it's one less crew member to manage. And that's actually quite useful, because managing your crew resources is incredibly important in this game. So yeah, there's you know, different bits of protection, and this is all actually reasonably advanced turrets at this point, because like I said, I've been grinding the lower parts of the campaign. You've got various things inside the actual the various systems. You've got equipment racks, which can have either parachutes, medkits, or fire extinguishers, and you want, you know, at least enough parachutes for the entire crew. When you start off, you've only got a couple of the 1 slot equipment racks, so it won't look quite like this. This is quite an upgraded plane at this point. Armor I've mentioned, and then you've got different survival options, which again just add to your survival stats at the cost of adding a bit more weight. And in fact, we could actually upgrade the dinghy, so if they come down over the water, they have a better chance of surviving. So it's cumulative. It's not just your crew's personal equipment survival stats, but the actual equipment you have on the bomber that adds to the survival stats matters as well. So that's all that. I've talked for 10 minutes. We haven't even flown anything yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one of the critical missions. This is Operation Hydra, which is going to bomb a thing, and this is, let's see, a V1 fuel factory or something of that nature. So this is a medium risk mission. I mean, they're categorized as easy, medium, and hard. The main variable is that there can be enemy aces involved. These guys over here, and I've already shot down a bunch of them. I don't know what happens if you eliminate all of them, if it generates some more, or if just that's it. I'm sure I'm not supposed to have shot down this many by you know, this point in the campaign, this early point in the campaign, but there's nothing to stop you doing that. There's nothing to stop you taking the longer, kind of more grindy route to get a higher skill crew and a more upgraded aircraft. So if they turn up, they're particularly tough, basically, so they can be a problem. But otherwise, yeah, the time of day seems to randomize. I'm not sure if the weather randomizes. Weather seems to be tied to particular like missions. So it's a bit, I don't know. You know, there's not, like, in terms of again, going back to FTL, just the amount of variety you get with FTL between each individual playthrough. I don't think you'll get that with Bomber Crew, which might limit the replayability. So we're going to take off to medium altitude. I've actually got into the habit of setting my flight engineer to lean the fuel mix just right away, which just ekes out the fuel supply a bit, because the one thing you can't do is increase your fuel supply, and the engines that you have on have absolutely no effect on fuel efficiency. That's just not a thing. You have a fixed amount of fuel, and it is all down to your use of the engineer's skills. Now this looks like we're taking off at dusk, so I'm probably going to have to drop back down to low level, because I'm actually using the hotkeys here. I've tried to get into the habit of using the 1 to 7 keys to actually select the different crew members, because if I press hold down the shift key, because you can scroll in, but that's a little bit clumsy. It's a bit easier to just shift and see the interior view. This is how you move your crew around the plane. Yeah, we're gonna have to go back down to the low level, because as you can see, the navigator just cannot navigate. Although potentially, I've actually got a skill at this point. If we go up to high level briefly, the navigator can navigate via the stars, which you'll see. Oh, actually no, that was my previous navigator. I tell a lie. I forgot that I managed to kill them. So well done me. That is a higher skill thing. This is why having the skills matters. My one surviving high skill crew member actually has some very, very useful ones indeed, including this one, auto tag, because you've got to manually mark every single incoming fighter, and that can be a bit grueling in the midst of, you know, fighters already attacking you and there's flak and you're trying to make a bomb run and all these things. So how you actually select anything, well, you've seen it already, it's hitting the space bar and it's the selection view, or whatever you want to call it, and that lets you tag things basically, and that's how you set the direction. You're not actually controlling your plane directly. So for this first lot of fighters, we'll just tag them manually. Ideally I'd be coming in at kind of medium altitude, but as we're at night and we cannot navigate by going up to high altitude briefly to take bearings by the stars, well, we're just going to have to do it this way, which is a little bit riskier, but on the plus side it means you can't get any enemies coming up from below you, but that's not so much an issue now that I have the rear lower turret. So I've been able to mark those enemies fairly far away because I've got an upgraded radar. When you start off, like that's one of the system upgrades. When you start off, you are basically tagging them at the point where they're already in gun range pretty much, because I think the turrets have a fixed range. So this is one of the advantages of upgrading your radar systems, is that you can tag them much further away, and that can potentially save you a lot of hassle rather than them already being practically on top of you. They're not catching up to me though. I don't know if I've just evaded their notice, or I don't know. Occasionally that will happen. I don't know if there's a visibility mechanic at all in this game. Like, there's no way to upgrade your plane to make it more stealthy, but yeah, you can sometimes manage to lose the enemy fighters. Right, so this is an additional objective essentially. You will occasionally get given these during missions, although during the non-critical missions, during the standard missions, you get to know which ones will have the additional objectives, because there's not really any randomization within them. You get to know which ones are which. So it'll be, you know, drop supplies for a downed pilot, or go and bomb an ammo dump, or whatever. There's also secondary conditions that you can choose to get in the form of recon photographs, and actually those are worth getting. Those are how you make the money, because the money you get for actually just doing the primary mission objectives is comparatively little. But even just at this low level of the campaign, doing those optional recon objectives gets you quite a lot of cash. It really does stack up. So yeah, it's a little bit of extra risk, but the reward, like for the first couple of campaign missions, I think you get like 500 per recon photo, and at this point I'm at 5,000 per recon photo. So it seems to ramp up relatively quickly. Right, so that's our secondary. And we've been given orders to shoot down the V1 rather than attempt to bomb the actual launch site. So we're going to try and get close. We've actually marked the launch, and you can see there actually they're starting to put flak up already. There we go. There's my nose gunner opening up, and there we go. So we've got 3 primary objectives. You only get 5 sticks of bombs essentially. You can also get bigger bombs. One of the later campaign missions, which I did on my first save, is one of the Ruhr dams with the bouncing bomb. I forget the name of the operation exactly, but that one anyway. So you get the bouncing bomb, and then I think potentially later on you'll get tall boys as well. In fact, for some of the missions you do get 3 very big bombs, but I don't think those are the tall boys though, because the tall boys required them to not have the regular, like I'm sure that required modifying the plane in the same way that having the bouncing bomb. Right, anyway, so we're going to radio for recon and auto tag, and auto tag does exactly what it says. Radio for recon marks stuff on your map that's ahead of you. You can also set custom headings, which is what that circle there is. So this is the point where being up higher would be nice, because, oh hello, there's an optional, you know what, go for the optional recon, which you get even on the critical story missions. Yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, being up high would be nicer because that puts you, being at mid-level puts you above the level of the flak, essentially. Right, so they're coming in, so we'll actually use some gunner abilities. And this is the part where, you know, this is where it gets a little bit more hectic because you're trying to make a run, and actually these are the big bombs we've got this time around. You're trying to make a run and everything's happening all at once, and you've got to mark things, and you've got planes coming in and shooting you, and you've got flak going on. So yeah, you could choose to just completely ignore this, but we're going to do it because it's worth quite a bit of cash. So we can see we've also got fighters coming in, and my one of my gunners needs to collect more ammo, which you need to tell them to do, and we've got more radar contacts, and this isn't too bad so far, but it can get considerably more hectic than this. So auto attacks recharge. This is how you know when abilities have come back, basically, is you have to keep an eye on the left hand side of the stream. It would be nice maybe if it had like a little additional bar that filled up to tell you, you know, that objectives are not objectives, abilities are becoming available, but instead you've got to keep an eye on the text boxes. And it will, you know, it does a reasonably good job with the on-screen help of telling you what's what as you're going through, but sometimes if it's in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff happening, it can be easy to miss. And that is maybe one of my criticisms, not heavy criticisms, but you know, a thing about the game is that sometimes the information can just get lost. And I did mention one of the plane crashes was, you know, me clicking on a crew member I didn't mean to, and this is why I've gotten into the habit of using the numeric keys. But even then, sometimes if you have to revive a fallen crew member, which you can do with medkit, oh, we need to open the doors, don't want to leave that too late. Yeah, it can be like if they are on top of one of the turrets, or if they're on top of another crew member, it can be quite hard to actually click the thing you need to click because there's just stuff in the way, and you end up accidentally clicking on a crew member that you don't need to. Right, so, oh, that's the med bed there, by the way, the rest bed as it's called. Right, we need to fly over there, select the next bomb. Oh, we've actually got a plane below us somehow. Right, so we're going to have to get somebody in the lower. I don't know why he didn't return to... In theory, he should return automatically, but he didn't. Anyway, so we'll have him get more ammo. Yeah, so that's a thing. They will return automatically from the med, the rest bed, and from the ammo box. But if you set the engineer to go and fix something in flight, which we've not had to do so far, but is something that can happen, they don't return automatically, and that's another suggestion I've made to them on Twitter, is that should be exactly the same. And in fact, when you have one of the crew members using their healing ability, it would be nice if they would just go back to their station after they're done. Right, so the nose gunner, we can actually swap him. We've got our recon photo, and it's now daytime, so we can actually climb to a medium altitude. I'm going to have him put the ammo back in there, and then we'll briefly put him in his back in his seat because we want to know what's our ground view like. We want to know how much fuel we've got left, basically. So no more planes. Yeah, we've not had any engine fires, which is quite useful. We can now climb above the flak, which is nice. 15 minutes remaining, so we can actually boost to go faster, which is maybe, you know, a useful thing if a bunch of fighters come down on you, but obviously uses more fuel. You can also transfer fuel between the tanks, if you get a leak in one of them, which can happen. So this is why I tend to keep the I've got him as a secondary skill with gunnery, but I tend to keep him in the nose gun and actually shift the bombardier back towards the waist gun because he needs to get back to that station very quickly sometimes to put out fires and such, like now that I have auto fire extinguishers. You can also have a crew member literally crawl out on the wing to put out an engine fire with a fire extinguisher, or to repair a damaged engine, which seems incredibly risky to me, but you know, it's a thing you can do. So let's check the map. How are we? So we seem to be... I'm not quite sure what our heading is at the moment, actually. I'm going to set my own custom heading. we'll try and get to the coastline a little bit quicker. In fact, we'll put him back in the engineer's seat for now, and we'll use lean again. We might I might fast forward the video here actually, because you do have the ability to fast forward time, but only when you're not over enemy territory and there's no fighters coming in or whatever. But there's nothing happening at the moment, so we might do a little jump cut. Well, we've got more fighters incoming, so we'll auto tack, and you know what, we'll use the Call Spitfire's ability as well, which might be totally wasted because it takes a little while to kick in. You need to plan ahead to use the Call Spitfire's ability, and generally I only get one use out of it per mission because it's got quite a long cooldown. In fact, we could always get the flight engineer on the nose gun, and here we go, daka daka daka. Oh, we've actually taken some engine damage there, so we could have him. I could demonstrate the completely sensible idea of having a crew member crawl out on a wing and fix things in the middle of a fight, which is totally fine. It can be considerably tougher than this. Like because I've spent so long grinding the cash and the crew experience. In fact, my original crew on this save was even more experienced than this, but I managed to kill most of them. But yeah, it really can be quite frantic, and so I've taken longer to do everything. I've ground the same missions over and over again for the cash and the experience, just so it would be less frenetic when it came to going up through the campaign, basically. So it's up to you. In a way, that's nice. It's up to you, but at the same time, you could literally spend forever doing the same relatively low-level missions. So anyway, we've got we've given the Spitfires something to do. So you can see we get 3 Spitfires, one of which is actually still just standing guard over me, and they can get kills as well. They will actually help you out. So there's more radar blips. I need another course adjustment. Oh, and I missed one over there apparently. So how are we doing for fuel? 12 minutes. So we're going to want to lean the mix again. Both waist gunners need more ammo. And this is why, even though it's quite heavy and it does less damage, I have just always gone for the auto feed tail gun position, because not having to manage that one extra ammo pickup, and the fact that it is a lot longer distance to walk than the waist gunners, who can just literally hop out their guns and grab more ammo. Right, we're going to need to go low level. Although we are going in the relatively the right direction. We can also maybe take the time to demonstrate the healing skill. Why not? We'll have Bell go and heal Morley. Well, that's a bunch coming in actually, so we'll just auto tag and get all of them at once. We could even get down to low level quicker by doing emergency dive, which is also a way in which you can get engine fires out if you don't have a fire extinguisher, but you have the emergency dive skill. Oh, hello. Uhura's taking some hits. Right. So we'll actually have Bell go and heal Uhura. We'll pop Hunter into the top turret there. And then we'll have some skills. Bell's actually taking some hits as well. Yeah, the fuselage is starting to look a little bit Swiss cheese, which it will do after most missions. You start to wonder how the plane's still flying, and it's not like this thing had a geodesic frame like the Wellington. It would actually maybe have been an interesting thing if you kind of started off with like a Wellington or whatever, and as the campaign progressed, then you got upgraded to other bombers. Right, Hunter's actually taken a fair few nasty hits there, so we'll get them on the rest bed, and we've also got a repair going on, but we're now back over the coast of Britain, which is generally where enemy fighters will always break off, in my experience. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it'd be nice, like you fly over enemy territory and there's all flak batteries and stuff. It'd be nice if you brought your plane back over Britain and there was, like flak batteries firing at the fighters chasing you, just for a bit of flavour, but I don't think it would actually make any difference. So there's the airfield in sight. We've got 10 minutes of fuel remaining, so this is, you know, even on the longer missions, you just have to absolutely keep the... I didn't need to do that, force of habit. You can, you know, you have to keep the flight engineer at the flight engineer station, and maybe it'd be nice if you could buy an extra crew member or something at some point, just so you had an extra gunner available, an extra body, but yeah. Anyway, so we're a bit low on fuel, but it's fine. We'll actually hit the lean button, why not? And this is the point where we can speed things up, so we'll lower gear, speed things up, and come in for a landing. And nobody died, although we came awfully close to having somebody knocked out, but we've got plenty of med kits on board. It just would have meant tasking somebody to pick up a med kit and go and revive the person that's been knocked out. Because they don't get killed instantly unless you crash. That's just not a thing, fortunately. But it is possible to run out of med kits, of course, and if you're out of med kits and the 2-minute timer goes down of somebody that's been knocked out, then that's it, they're dead. So it is relatively generous with the time. You know, if there's other stuff going on, you can afford to deal with that first and then send somebody for a med kit. So there you go. Even though this was a campaign mission, I got less than I got for doing the completely optional recon photo. So yeah, I've spent so long just grinding the lower parts of the campaign, but I might pick up the pace a bit now. So yeah, this is Bomber Crew, and it's all right. You know, for the price, I think it's a reasonably fun little game. It's deceptively cute, certainly. Lots of crew members will die as you're figuring out things, and yeah, you know, I don't particularly regret buying this as a, because I don't do this often. I don't just go and randomly buy things because I saw them on a video, but in this case I did, and I absolutely don't regret it. It's actually a quite fun little game. So you can find it on Steam, Bomber Crew. It's currently on a discount, and as I showed you, you get the different liveries as well that will presumably be a cheap DLC at some point in the future. But if you enjoyed FTL, if you enjoy that kind of game, and if you thought this looked appealing, then absolutely check it out, because it's rather decent. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and if you did, you can hit the like button, you can leave any comments below, you can sub to my channel if you haven't already, and as always, stay tuned for more.